Anyway, happy Friday, everyone. Welcoming in. About to get started. Made it to another weekend. Did the hard workout on a Wednesday, so I guess I get to treat myself today by doing a, wouldn't say less intense, but I guess technique-wise is a bit easier, personally. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, because I missed out on Monday, so I guess I'll do some push-ups. But this time, everything I'm gonna have is that little weighted bag over there, the one where I'm at 10 kilos at the moment with that bag, so I'm glad I can at least handle that much. We'll see how I go next week. Better start soon, or else work's gonna message and be like, "Get in, come in and see you in an hour," or something like that. This thing where I dawdle too long and then I lose half an hour somewhere, and next thing there goes my workout, and then I'm pissy for the day because I didn't get to finish my workout. Yeah, so push-ups. Guessing I'll go back to my Bulgarian squats. Did squats on Tuesday? Sorry, Wednesday? And then I'm thinking I need to do a bit of shoulders. I haven't done shoulders in a while. Ab workout, it's going to be the ab wheel. I think that's it. Simple, easy, and clean. Alright, let's get started. I'm going to be listening to Distractible in the background. But yes, as always, I welcome any questions. I love giving answers. And if I don't know it, I love finding out the answers. Okay.
Hello, elegant listeners, and welcome to Go, My Favorite Sports Team, the podcast that has reached new heights thanks to Mark's naked ass.
Yes, my naked ass. Well, maybe naked ass. It's really kind of a hypothetical situation now because as of this recording, maybe not before or after or wherever, the Apple part of the deal has not been fulfilled. Therefore, I'm okay.
Your naked ass is waiting in the wings.
It's on deck, however we said in the sports terminology. If you don't know who we are, my name is Mark. You probably know who we are, but in case you saw a new podcast at the #1 spot at the top,
It's up there. It's being recommended to more people.
yeah, or something like that. I don't know how discoverability works on these various other platforms, but I am Mark, also known as Markiplier. I don't know anything about sports. Tyler has been trying to teach me for almost a year now, and I have not taken in anything about sports. I don't watch sports. I don't do nothing about that.
Meanwhile, I have a master's degree. Tyler Scheid, that's my name, has a master's degree in sport administration. I've studied and played sport almost my entire life.
Yes, and that makes us a dynamic duo to help bridge the gap between those who call sports ball and all that stuff, which I don't say, but some people do. But I don't really watch games. I don't really follow sports, and that which I do is more of like a every once in a while I'll pick something up.
But you're able to now be in some conversations and understand what even your personal trainer's talking about when Tua got injured.
Yeah, I could. I just don't choose to.
Yeah, but it's still getting in there somehow, even if you may be resisting it.
I'm not resisting it. It's just like is it my fault or is it the teacher's fault if something doesn't stick in?
Hold on. It sticks in. It's just you don't reaffirm it by watching sports.
Why would I do that? That wasn't part of the deal.
Well, you could be participating in conversations about it, which we do every time.
But I don't want to. I turn on ESPN and it's so boring.
Listen, if you weren't so busy doing a million other projects, you'd probably go out in the world and have someone talking about sports and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense to me.
I wouldn't.
Oh, yes,
You
it
know
would.
what I do in my spare time, and even before YouTube, it wasn't sports. I don't go out to the bar and go like, hey, you see Peyton Manning last week? I don't do that.
But you record Distractable, and Bob and Wade pay attention to sports in some...
Yeah, but we don't talk about it. Anyway, it's not that I don't like sports. I am actually learning that there are some interesting things about sports, and it's the basis of the human experience. And today we're going to learn something even more about well, yeah, you talk now.
Yeah, we're going to learn more that I had to learn already about cricket. Because right now, the Cricket World Cup is happening in Australia.
World Cup. I thought that was soccer.
There's World Cups for more than one sport, Mark.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. No. There's no way.
Anyway, before we get into the primer, did you even figure out if anyone was accosting me lately?
I haven't had time. I've been so busy with other super important things.
Getting your butt on deck, I guess.
Yeah, getting my butt prepared.
What do you know about cricket, or what do you think of?
What I think of is Shaun of the Dead, because that's the first time that I saw a cricket bat in media.
Yeah.
Because he picked up a cricket bat because he is British. And Shaun of the Dead takes place in the UK, and instead of baseball bats, which would be the ubiquitous thing people would have by their bed here in the States, they might have a cricket bat, which seems like a pretty good weapon because it's so wide. I know that it's like roots, but there's probably some tie between baseball and cricket, I'm sure, just like football and rugby. I'm sure you have that in your big old list of notes there.
Yep.
But that's as far as I know.
The exercise is definitely harder. Who would have thought? That's what it is. You gotta test your limits. Find those moments of uncomfortability. Get used to it. That was weird how I pronounced that. Oh man, I've missed a lot of news. I listen to a lot of Philip DeFranco for world news, and I don't know. I'm starting to get desensitized.
You beautiful bastards, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. Buckle up, make sure you hit that like button, otherwise we'll punch you in the throat, and let's just jump into it. The Adriana Chechik situation has somehow gotten even worse again, with Adriana now revealing some absolutely devastating updates about her TwitchCon injury. Like, early in October, she broke her back in 2 places after jumping into the TwitchCon foam pit, which was reportedly shallow and had a concrete floor. She's now had to have multiple surgeries. Luckily, she's recovering at home right now. She actually did a stream over the weekend, but then during that stream, she dropped a bomb.
And then also, like, I don't care, everyone's gonna know, but I was pregnant, and I didn't find out until I was in the hospital. So I also have, like, crazy hormones. I'm not pregnant anymore because of the surgery. I couldn't keep it. But my hormones are just also through the fucking roof because of that.
Of course, the major reaction being, oh my god, this is fucking heartbreaking. It's also seemingly made more people say that she should really file a lawsuit. Though there you had some speculating that if she does sue, or she maybe even is suing right now, we might not hear about it publicly. Personally, I agree with those people. I would be shocked if there's not a lawsuit or a threat of lawsuit right now. It might just be me, and I don't doubt that Adriana is like just kind of keeping people in the loop. But every time she talks about what she's going through, it really does feel like it's a paper trail and documentation of the damage it has caused her life. That said, with most things in life, I am an overthinker and analyzer, but I think it's accurate here. Since Adriana cannot break the backs of those responsible here, run their pockets. And then I got messaged that there was a new Pokemon controversy. I thought 2 things. 1, easy thumbnail, thank you so much. And 2, oh no, it's Halloween. What was the costume? But no, turns out that's not the controversy. The controversy was that she paid for her parents' retirement. Y'all, more people need to get off Twitter. But for the sake of discussion, let's walk through it. She tweets, paid for my parents' retirement. Some people responded, hey, that's great, good for you. With Poke adding, as an immigrant, I've always felt indebted to them. Now, nothing makes me happier than repaying them for their sacrifices. But all of that also resulted in a number of responses, like, when did I ask? Others saying she was kind of doing this for clout. Someone else asking, whatever happened to good deeds done in silence without the need for praise. We know you're mega rich and have been for many years. Weird flex. And here's the thing, I can understand some of the frustration around kind of things that are parallel to this. You remember that period of time where like every prank YouTuber was like, everyone thinks I'm an asshole because I'm just harassing people in public. What if I gave a homeless person $1,000 and filmed it and monetized it, and then everyone thought I was a good person? But for like this thing specifically, I think it's a dream for many of us to you know, give back to the parent or parents that we love and do not hate. Like for me personally, I'm so grateful that I've been lucky enough to live a life where I can make
must be good for
my
you, right?
stepmom's life easy. My dad
I have
got sick
philosophy
when I was growing
that
up. He used to be
if
the
I like
breadwinner,
it,
then all of a sudden she did. My dad's
more
also
connected
a
with
hard
food,
dude to live with. I love
but
you, Dad, but I think you're also
if I
aware
like
of
it,
that. So while like, yeah, it's
very
not
most
something
likely
I'm
it's
talking about
unhealthy for
now.
me.
I'm also mentioning it now because I don't think that people should shy away from this. Like I think that it's an achievement. Like she's set. Like she's not gonna have to work ever again. And it's kind of that mindset that makes me glad that Pokemon kind of actually responded to some of the people like who were throwing shit in her face for posting this by also providing some background, explaining my parents left behind their entire families, friends, and lives they built in Morocco just so my brother and I could have better opportunities in another country. If you don't understand/relate, just move on. And adding, I grew up painfully aware of how much they missed their parents, siblings, friends back in Morocco. But they were always so happy that their sacrifices allowed my brother and I to get a great education and pursue whatever we wanted. If I didn't grow up in Canada, I wouldn't have the same access to internet, peripherals, etc. that allowed me to become the CC I am today. The key thing that I'm going to end on is, y'all who've watched me for a while, you know I'm one of the most cynical motherfuckers on the planet, but even I think it's stupid to get angry about this. And maybe it's just like that I didn't grow up having much of my life, and then when I had it, it brought me so much joy that I couldn't like take care of those who took care of me. For me, I don't know, this isn't a story to get angry about. If anything, I can see it as being somewhat inspiring. And then, a disabled woman allegedly had to crawl off of a plane after the airline asked her to pay for an aisle wheelchair. Right, so reportedly, Natalie Curtis, a wheelchair user, was flying on Jetstar Airlines for a birthday trip to Bangkok. She boarded the flight with an aisle wheelchair, no problem. It then comes time to get off the plane, but there's not a wheelchair available. And according to Natalie, the staff actually asked her to pay to use one.
That whole heart rate thing that I have, because now that I can see my beats, it gets me a bit scared every time I see it in the red. But supposedly the internet tells me that's not too bad. Heavy exercise rate, heart rate. They had some math thing, so I don't know, not the best when it comes to health and individuality. Not really a one size fits all, but what it said was you could just get 220 minus your age. That's the max level where you want to get your heart rate. So it's 220, me, 32. What do we make that? So pretty much 188 beats. That's my upper limit. Supposedly. Let's not try to test it.
Arrived, there was a lady with a notepad that knew that we had to pay something for a chair.
She then says she refused, saying that she's never been expected to pay before, and so they bring her own wheelchair to the plane, but it was too large to fit down the aisle. And so then, reportedly seeing the staff didn't actually have a plan, Natalie began crawling down the aisle a length of just over 13 feet, with her friend who was traveling with her filming Natalie making her way down, also reportedly unable to carry her because of a knee injury. Natalie also sharing her story with a local news outlet, saying she'll never fly with Jetstar again, and
That was, extremely
Jetstar.
I definitely don't want anyone else to go through what I had to go through.
And as far as the response from the
They budget
airline,
for a
they released
reason.
a statement to the same news outlet saying they offered Natalie a refund and additional compensation, but they also deny asking her to ever pay for the use of a wheelchair, saying a miscommunication resulted in the delay of an aisle wheelchair being made available at the gate on arrival. At no point was an aisle chair withheld due to a request for payment. So that's a story. Either way, a terrible way to start a vacation. And where I'll leave this is, I've never flown Jetstar. To those who have, how does this story sound to you based off of your experiences? And then I want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's show, Established Titles. Established Titles is based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lords and ladies in English. You know, I always say it's just this like fun gift to give anyone, but especially for those hard to shop for people in your life. The title pack gives you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a speed run this shit. So the conspiracy and speed run this shit. Me purchase. And then Elon Musk has only owned Twitter for 1 weekend and he's already spreading anti-LGBTQ conspiracies. It's honestly like he's trying to speedrun this shit. So the conspiracy in question is centered around Nancy Pelosi's 82-year-old husband, Paul. He, if you didn't see over the weekend, according to law enforcement, was hospitalized with a skull fracture and other serious injuries after a man broke into their home and violently attacked him with a hammer. And while many across ideological and political lines have condemned the attack, plenty of others, largely on the far right, have begun to push misinformation about it. With this, now apparently including Twitter's new owner, who responded to a tweet Hillary Clinton posted about the attack and wrote, "There's a tiny possibility there might be more to the story," while also linking to an opinion article from a website called the Santa Monica Observer, with that article in question claiming that Paul Pelosi had been drunk at the time of the assault and was, quote, in a dispute with a male prostitute. And I know this is going to shock shock some of you, absolutely zero evidence was presented to back this up. What? I can't believe it. Right, not only did the author cite zero sources, he explicitly wrote that the alternative version of events that he presented were what happened in his, quote, humble opinion. But also, like, this kind of reporting is something you should expect from the Santa Monica Observer. Like, looking into it, fact checkers have described it as a low credibility far-right source, and I really feel like that undersells the level of bullshittery we're talking about. I mean, this is literally the same outlet that falsely claimed back in 2016 that Hillary Clinton had died and been replaced with a body double. But apparently for Musk, this was a trusted source, and he decided to amplify this lying bullshit to his more than 100 million followers yesterday. And while he did eventually delete the post several hours later, according to reports it had already gained more than 24,000 retweets, over 86,000 likes, it kind of also took on a life of its own. More and more people latching on to it, regurgitating it. And so with this, you have places like the Washington Post noting, you know, this isn't the first time he's used the platform to promote false or misleading claims, but noting that willingness to spout misinformation or to boost it by using the tactic of, quote, just raising questions could create major conflicts for him and for Twitter now that he owns the company. Also, because up to this point we've only talked about the misinformation, I do want to note that law enforcement officials say that the attacker was actually seeking Nancy Pelosi, who was in Washington at the time, with sources familiar with the case also telling reporters that the man had a list of people he planned to target. And according to CBS News, their review of suspected social media posts from this attacker, it turned up conspiracy theories about Holocaust denial, pedophiles in the government, and claims that Democratic officials run child sex rings. With CNN reporting that he posted memes and conspiracy theories on Facebook about COVID vaccines, the 2020 election, and the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. Right, so we have all of that, and we have to wait to see in the coming days and weeks what other information comes out. But connected to all of that, many people are very concerned about what the fuck is the future of Twitter going to look like. Elon Musk officially took control of the company, and just mere days later, he was promoting politically charged misinformation. Right, all social media platforms have to deal with misinformation, but it's very rarely the main person that owns the company actively promoting it. This isn't just a concern for like the public good, but also part of the reason social media companies care about it, and some would argue one of the only reasons they care about it, is because they need advertisers. And along with the concerns of allowing misinformation, there's also concerns about hate speech, which are already there. Watchdogs and experts have reported massive swells in racist and offensive tweets since Musk took over. One group called the NCRI, the Network Contagion Research Institute, which analyzes hundreds of millions of posts on social media, reporting that use of the N-word skyrocketed nearly 500% on Twitter just in the 12 hours after Musk's deal was finalized. Though, I do want to note there that doesn't appear to be the result of any change in Twitter content moderation policies, but more I think it shows a mindset of people going, oh, I bet the policies are going to be more lax. Actually, regarding this topic, Musk himself said in a tweet on Friday, we have not yet made any changes to Twitter's content moderation policies. And also sharing an earlier post where he announced that, quote, Twitter will be forming a content moderation council with widely diverse viewpoints. No major content decisions or account reinstatements will happen before the council convenes. But that said, according to reports, we are seeing some changes already. Musk already firing a number of longtime Twitter executives. Now, reportedly, people involved in the matter are saying that he and remaining executives huddled this weekend to discuss content moderation strategies and plans to lay off 25% of the company's employees. And in a securities filing made public just today, it was revealed that Musk dissolved Twitter's 9-person board of directors and became the sole director when he officially purchased the company last week. Also beyond that, The Verge reported that people familiar with the matter
scientifically proven if you
by the outlet indicate
curse through your workout, you do go harder.
But as far as if that
I can't remember where I saw that from. Might be a Mythbusters episode.
That's kind of the situation in general regarding Twitter. I think we're just having to see how everything is going to play out. In the meantime, I feel like people are kind of left with the question, and you can answer this one if you want to. If you look at what happened over the weekend, and you think this is just a small bump in the road for Elon, like mistakes happen, which, hey, mistakes do happen. Or does this seem like something with Elon that it feels very on trend, and this is just kind of a small taste of the chaos that we're all going to experience? And then, this will surprise most of you, but one of the most competitive races that we're seeing in the midterms right now is actually happening in New York. Specifically, several contests in New York's Hudson Valley could decide whether the House flips or not, with one of the most closely watched contests involving Representative Pat Ryan. And if his name sounds familiar, it's because we talked about him back in August when he won an incredibly tight special election for a vacated seat in New York's 19th district. But what also made that special election national news is that Ryan won his race because he centered his campaign on a platform of defending abortion rights. So as a result, Ryan's race was largely viewed as an important test case to see if abortion actually was a topic that would get voters out to vote, especially in swing districts, which are expected to play a heavy role in the battle for control of Congress. But that was a special election, and so Ryan still has to win another election this fall to keep his seat. But key thing, this time he's actually running in the 18th district because of the redistricting from the 2020 census. So now, almost half a year since Roe's reversal, will abortion rights still mobilize voters? When we reached out to Representative Ryan, he still thinks that this will drive voters.
So before our special election, no one thought we were going to win. All the polls had us down. Everyone, I think, didn't give enough credit to people in our district and in the country who recognize that when a fellow American's fundamental freedoms are taken away, all of us stand up and say that's not who we are. And we saw that here. We did see it in Alaska. I think that was a big part of Mary Peltola's win. And we're going to see it again. I think the energy's only built as we've seen how even more extreme Graham and others in the party are willing to go in taking away these rights.
Ryan also went on to talk about his opponent, New York State Assemblymember Colin Schmidt.
My opponent is diametrically opposed. He cheered on the Dobbs decision. He's been endorsed by the most extreme anti-choice groups in the country, including National Right to Life. In a debate earlier this week, he literally looked the moderator in the eye and said, even if a doctor told a woman that her life was at risk,
126 beats. It's coming around too quick.
It's just disgusting, and it's not who we are as a country.
I'm not
Ryan
sitting in American
absolutely believes
politics.
that Schmidt would vote to further restrict reproductive rights at the federal.
Gonna hold the House come November 8th.
And then, y'all, language is important. Some would say muy importante, molto importante, or hijo ni Julio. Personally, a whole new world today. And then, over 150 people were crushed to death and nearly 100 more were injured by a massive crowd in Seoul during Halloween celebrations, which makes this their worst domestic disaster since 2014 when a ferry sank and killed 304. So all of this occurred in the popular Itaewon neighborhood, which is known for its drinking spots and Halloween events. And this weekend was no exception. Upwards of 100,000 people turned up at the first major party since the pandemic restrictions were lifted, leading to an extremely large crowd in these narrow streets. It's unclear exactly what triggered the crowd to surge, but when people are this dense, they kind of act like liquid. So the little bumps at the back of the group can turn into massive pressure for those on the front of the group. And at some point, the crowd managed to get stuck in one of the many choke points in Itaewon. The area, I think, to kind of like best explain it, it's like a handful of normal-sized streets with a ton of alleyways branching between them. So the pressure there was absolutely insane, leading to people near the front of the crowd being completely unable to move, and those in the back trying to push forward because they didn't know why people stopped. And so some began to fall over, causing the person behind them to also fall as the pressure forced them to fill the gap, with it all leading to people literally being crushed to death, even if they were just standing there. Also, is likely the reason why most
I
of the
deliberately
people
didn't look up
injured
this
or
news
died
because
were women in their
it's
20s.
tragic in
Generally
itself.
speaking, they had smaller frames, less muscle to withstand the crushing pressure. Because this happened in Itaewon, which is extremely popular with foreigners,
I was just
there quite a
surprised it
few
was
of them among the
street. I
victims,
thought it was
including
somewhere
at least
more
2 Americans.
dense.
Also, when we say that
But
people
yeah,
were
like,
crushed to
it
death,
was
I'm
packed,
kind of just talking about
It was outdoors
general
and
deaths
everything,
because the
so
exact
somehow.
causes varied. There's some
I
died
expected something a
of
lot more
broken bones and
claustrophobic,
ribs,
which I'm pretty
and
sure
others
it
were
was,
unable
but-
to breathe. And among the survivors, most of whom are in extremely delicate conditions, there are reports of things like rhabdomyolysis, which is when your muscle tissue begins to break down and gets into your kidneys, which can eventually be deadly. But also, like, a key thing here, I cannot undersell how dense this crowd was. And I'm not going to show you the video. If you search on Twitter, there's no shortage of people that were there experiencing it, that were filming at the same time. But just before you watch it, know it's horrifying. Some of the people that you're watching may literally be dying right there. It's just heartbreaking, which is also why since Sunday, mourners have gone to Itaewon and other places of mourning to share their condolences, with the president also declaring an entire week of national mourning. So as far as what happens next, it'll likely be a while before more answers are given, but reportedly there's been a 475-man task force put on this to try and figure out what exactly happened, and so far they say it doesn't look like anything criminal explicitly took place, though in the meantime all of this has led to questions about how this could have been prevented. People asking, were more officers needed? And I mean, if you look at the situation, reportedly 200 were already deployed, although they were focusing more on sex crimes, not crowd control. But let's say, they shifted focus. They, alongside the 150 civil servants in the neighborhood, would still not be enough to control nearly 100,000 people. And so others have been suggesting things like, in the future, cars should be forced out of the neighborhood so people have more room, or that a limit be placed on how many people can actually go into the area. As we wait to find out more and see if anything can be done to avoid this in the future, I do want to share my condolences with the people of Korea and hope that an event like this never happens again. And then, Brazil voted to shift back to the left after voting to elect Lula da Silva back into the presidency. But a key thing here is that this was a very, very tight race. Lula getting 51% of the vote to beat right-wing poster boy Jair Bolsonaro. And the electoral breakdown was exactly what you'd expect, right? You had Bolsonaro doing well in the South, which was counted first and gave him an early lead. But then Lula quickly caught up as the votes in his stronghold started to come through. Also, if you're not familiar with politics there, Lula has had a few crazy years, we'll call it, where he was convicted of corruption, he spent 580 days in prison, but that sentence was then annulled by the Supreme Court there, opening the door for the former president to come back. And so in his victory speech, Lula mentioned all that drama, saying, "They tried to bury me alive and I'm here," and adding that starting on January 1st, 2023, I will govern for the 215 million Brazilians, not just the ones who voted for me. There are not two Brazils, we are one country, one people, one great nation. But here's the key thing. There are fears that Bolsonaro will not concede the election, especially since with no evidence, he's been claiming even before the election took place that electoral fraud was going to happen. And as I'm recording this, he has still not conceded. And so we're seeing the conspiracies already starting, right? Some
more
claiming that
sets.
Lula's release from prison was illegal.
We start
and
the
he
next
shouldn't
half
be
of the
eligible for
workout.
office. We're trying to open one door to deny him his win. You also have people looking for any
I hate
signs of there
this.
being voter fraud. With this, likely including people just making shit
Gotta
up.
change
And
that
there, the
mindset.
election officials saying on Sunday
Gotta
there
learn
have
to
been
love
no
the
signs of
journey.
fraud. However, because this is the
Or else what's
closest
the point?
election they've had there in 34
Well,
years. There are serious concerns that
two ways
this
to
could
focus
push
on
Bolsonaro
goals
to feel
that I've been learning
comfortable in
recently.
denying the results. And this
Either
is going to
look
be a
at
big
the
one to
end point,
watch, even for the international community.
or the journey
Because if
along the
Lula
way.
does manage to get into office, there are huge implications. Where things like he's aiming
Listen
for a zero
to Andrew
deforestation
Huberman
policy, meaning he wants to
his
completely
podcast
stop deforestation
about
of the
dopamine
Amazon,
regulation.
not just targeted illegal deforestation.
Explains a lot
He's
about
also
it.
promised to stop illegal mining on indigenous
But
land,
essentially,
which is an issue that communities there have
you want to
complained
focus
about
more on
for
the
years.
journey
Bolsonaro
rather than the
largely turned
results.
a blind eye to indigenous
'Cause that's
issues. But
the
for
biggest
now,
part
we'll
of
have to wait and see. But
You're
ultimately,
goal-driven,
that is
like
where
it
that
works.
story
Not
and
saying-
today's show ends. As always, thank you for watching, like, and being subscribed to these daily.
I'm not saying nothing's wrong with it. It's just the effort you put in just feels less significant if you only focus on the goals. It makes it hard to keep going sometimes. Sometimes those goals just don't get there straight away. And if you keep repeatedly just focusing on the goals, you're not getting the bit of a negative input there. I'm explaining it very basically. Like I said, Andrew Huberman, look him up, explains it so much better. The guy's a master in neurobiology and pathology. Oh my gosh. Right, I'm up to 135 beats. Alright, I got 15 beats to go before I gotta go. Well, do my next set.
Wait, is that real? Mate?
Kim Jong-kook from Running Man. He says he doesn't drink water during his workouts. I don't know how he does that. Like, I'm sure he's trained for it. But man, like, I think the mental relief I get from water. It's always a sip as well. Never drink water while you work out. You'll get sick. You'll feel sick. Some can drink more than others. That's just personally. But for you, for you and most people, I'd say like take your preferred sip. Don't just chug it down. Ugh.
Megan Fox disrespected Christianity by taking a sexy communion? That is horrible. Show me so I can truly be disgusted and angry. There's video? Oh, this is not okay. Oh, it's replaying again. So, a number of celebrities are currently under fire for their Halloween costumes this year. This photo dump getting a lot of hate from people saying it mocked Christianity, because while it received 3.4+ million likes, a lot of the top comments are saying, how dare you? Though I will say, and you will rarely ever hear me say this, in MGK's defense, if he was actually a priest, this is the least worst thing a priest who has come under fire has ever done. But
Yes.
also that said, I would
Yes.
nod my head in agreement with the one of the top comments that read, imagine the outcry if they mocked literally any other religion, and notice how Christianity is the only religion that is openly mocked and people find it comical. And personally, as a dirty, evil non-believer, I think making fun of any faith should be fair game, but you know the reaction would be different if MGK wasn't dressed as a priest or the Pope, but instead was dressed as a different religion's leader. There are plenty of examples on it, but for me, the most meaningful is, I remember when the Charlie Hebdo shooting happened, and I had friends that actively would dunk on Christians and Christianity, and they were like, well, what did those artists expect? They crossed a line. Which, just as a side note, if you think that justifies murder, you're a fucking psychopath. But yeah, main things. There is a double standard, and also, don't worry, if Megan Fox deletes that video, I saved it as evidence. You also had Kim Kardashian getting
I'm trying to
sued for her daughter
recognize
North's
the
Michael
influence.
Jackson costume because North wore Michael Jackson's actual Smooth Criminal hat. Side note, and I feel like this just is not talked about enough. Do you remember that Michael Jackson had a video game? It was called Moonwalker. You could play
Yes.
one or multiple Michael Jacksons, and your
Yes.
job was to save children. Like, I played that shit on the Sega Genesis. Like, sometimes I feel like we live in weird times, but stuff's always been weird. Anyway, you also had Billie Eilish and Jesse Rutherford in the news, who went as an old man and a baby. Some seeing this as a joke about the age gap in their relationship. He's 31, she cannot legally buy alcohol. You also had The View doing a segment with kids and news and pop culture costumes. People getting angry there because they did a take on the Will Smith Oscars slap. People finding it to be offensive, saying they were turning violence and assault into entertainment. Others saying that a red hand mark across the face, specifically around the mouth, is used to raise awareness about missing and murdered Indigenous women. But yeah, that's what people are angry about. No one's going to remember it in 24 to 72 hours. And then, absolutely shocking and heartbreaking news. Takeoff was shot and killed this morning. Some just learning from tweets, others because people have been sharing insanely graphic video of his dead body online. And for those that don't know him, he was a member of the group Migos. As far as this incident, it happened at a bowling alley in Houston, with reports saying that fellow Migos member Quavo was also there. They were attending a party, and 2 other victims were injured and taken to the hospital. As of recording, their names have not been released, but as far as what happened, sources told TMZ that an altercation broke out during a dice game, with a Hollywood Reporter saying that no arrests have been announced yet. While we wait to find out more, hopefully get some answers, one of the big aspects that people are discussing right now is the footage of the incident that's been floating around online. It appears to show the aftermath of what happened, where Takeoff's body is visible, as well as people saying you can see and hear Quavo and shot breathing. So of course, people calling the circulation of
The
the
actual
footage
me standing up just
disrespectful.
added
Others
10
saying, I
more
don't know, but
beats.
seeing a video floating around of Takeoff's lifeless body and a Screaming
I
Quavo isn't
question
something
my
any of
body
us needed to
sometimes.
see. Are we so desensitized that we have to record absolutely everything? People also slamming TMZ for including that video in some of its coverage. But yeah, that's where we are right now with this horrible story. We're obviously going to keep our eyes and ears open to see what comes next. But in the meantime, of course, I would love to know your thoughts. And then Elon Musk may have just broken Twitter. It's been an interesting less than a week where he bought the company, dissolved the board, promoted politically charged misinformation, deleted it, then made fun of the people that were calling him out for promoting the misinformation. Then we started seeing reports that he was going to start charging people for the blue check mark, but people were like, maybe that's not going to happen. And then today, as I was recording, Elon announced from the top of his hill, Twitter's current lords and peasants system for who has or doesn't have a blue check mark is bullshit. Power to the people, blue for $8 a month. And then going on to add, in addition to the check mark, you'll get priority in replies, mentions, and search, which is essential to defeat spam and scam. Ability to post long video and audio, half as many ads. Noting this will also give Twitter a revenue stream to reward content creators. Well, of course, the reaction to anything Elon tweets is mixed. This seemed to be getting a lot more pushback. With people like Marquez Brownlee tweeting, my number one rule on the internet that's never been successfully broken is to charge for something that was previously free. Charlie Moy's critical writing, blue check marks on here are already silly, but imagine paying $8 a month for it. You get more value flushing $8 down a toilet. You're basically just paying for a badge that lets people identify you as an idiot. Cody Johnston writing, power to the people if people pay for it. Dolan Dark tweeting, anyone who willingly pays for this should be pointed and laughed at. You also had Graham Stephan asking, how will you protect against impersonators who pay $8 a month for a similar username that appears indistinguishable from the real person, especially if they both have blue check marks? Which I think is a very important question. I'd have to imagine there'd be some sort of ID verification system chain. And for me, I'll just add to this. I think Twitter's current system for the check marks, it's stupid, it's too restrictive. But this, at least how it's been pitched, genuinely feels like it's just a perfect setup for chaos and confusion. Now more than ever in the age of misinformation, it feels like check marks are more about security. I mean, I just think of how fucking horrid the YouTube system is. There's so many people in every one of my comment sections that are like trying to scam people posing as me. And literally one of the only defenses I have at this scale is the fact that I have a check mark. But hey, I will say in the interest of fairness, one, I'd love to hear more about this plan if there is more to be fleshed out. And two, yeah, at the end of the day, it is a private company. He bought it and it is his to build or burn down to the ground. Granted, Twitter is a huge part of international discourse. It is something that has real world impact as well, but it is what it is. While we wait to see whatever the fuck this is going to be, I'll pass the question up to you. What are your thoughts on this? Do you
One
see
more
this as a
step.
good idea, a bad idea? Are you somewhere in the middle that
We're
it's
into the second half.
the idea
Oh,
of,
gosh.
equalizing everything, but it's really just so he can make money? Any and all thoughts you got, I'd love to hear from you. And then, online banner ads, sidebars, pop-ups, they're everywhere. From mainstream news sites to less than legal torrent hubs. Most are just annoying, colorful distractions, but some are malvertising ads created to infect your device with malware and viruses. So how can you block these dangerous sites? How do you get peace of mind? Well, that is where our fantastic partner and sponsor of today's show, NordVPN, or more directly, nordvpn.com/Phil comes in. Right, an attacker will create a convincing advert containing hidden lines of malicious code and find a way to feature their content on a legitimate website. When you click that ad, you'll be directed to a dangerous server from which the rest of the attack will be launched. But with NordVPN's threat protection, you can block dangerous sites and limit advertising, giving you a cleaner, safer browsing experience. But also, no matter what you do, slow down and exercise some caution. Right, a healthy dose of skepticism will go a long way in keeping you secure. So hey, to help protect yourself from malvertising, head on over to nordvpn.com/Phil to get a huge discount off a 2-year plan and wait for it, 4 extra months free. It's an incredible deal. Go for it. It's nordvpn.com/Phil. It's all risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And then TikTok will be banned in America if Federal Communication Commissioner Brendan Carr has his way, with him bluntly stating after seeing how China can access American data via TikTok that I don't believe there is a path forward for anything other than a ban, and saying he believes there's no way to put enough protections in place to ensure that the data isn't finding its way back into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. With this being the most forceful language to date by anyone at the FCC about the platform, although key thing, they have no actual power to ban the platform. But that's why he's trying to get the Council on Foreign Investments in the U.S. to
20
take
more
action
beats,
against the
and I'll go to the
platform.
last
Now,
set.
as big of a deal as that is, TikTok seems right now to not be concerned about Carr's comments, pointing out that he, quote, has no role in the confidential discussions with the U.S. government related to TikTok and appears to be expressing views independent of his role as an FCC commissioner. And another key thing here is that Carr is just one of 4 commissioners currently at the FCC. But something that doesn't help TikTok is the fact that Carr does seem to have some political weight here, because the last time he made a move against a Chinese tech company was Huawei, and it's now banned in most of the West. Also, the timing of Carr's comments is notable because right now TikTok is trying to figure out if it can be divested from ByteDance to an American company as part of an ongoing negotiation with the CFI US. But easily the biggest roadblock there for some senior DOJ officials is that the deal currently in place doesn't provide enough distance between TikTok and Beijing. And that's going to sound familiar to you because the Trump administration actually tried to force TikTok to be sold to a US company as well. But that push ended up falling apart and was widely criticized by progressives at the time. But there's also been a big shift happening, and a lot of Dems are also on board with banning TikTok now. Right, for example, you had Democratic Senator Mark Warner saying last week, "This is not something you would normally hear me say, but Donald Trump was right on TikTok years ago. If your country uses Huawei, if your kids are on TikTok, the ability for China to have undue influence is a much greater challenge and a much more immediate threat than any kind of actual armed conflict. And with there being a statistically strong possibility that the Republicans win the midterms, they could then block any deal that's seen as too soft on China, paving the way for TikTok to actually die." So this may be one of the biggest changes on social media that we're going to see in a while. And I mean, Elon Musk just bought Twitter, and he just so happens to be talking about bringing back Vine right as one of the biggest platforms in the world. TikTok seems to be hanging by a thread in the US. I guess the main point of the story is, ooh, I'm really glad I started embracing YouTube Shorts, both here and on the PDS News Clips channel, which I'll link in the description. And then the election security versus voter intimidation debate and chaos is well underway, with a major battle being waged right now in Harris County, Texas, which houses Houston and is also the state's largest jurisdiction. And this clash centers around a push by state and local Republicans to send election monitors to watch how ballots are handled in the county, which is a Democratic stronghold with a majority non-white population. Republican officials, for their part, argue this is necessary to protect election security and ensure ballots are properly managed, with Texas's Republican Secretary of State announcing in a letter last month that monitors would be sent to conduct randomized checks and oversee ballot counting, and the top election official claiming that was necessary because a Trump-backed audit of the 2020 election in Harris County found alleged security breaches with the handling of 14 machines that stored vote tallies. But local Democratic leaders and voting right advocates say this is just a clear attempt to intimidate and scare both voters and election workers in a Democratic-held area where Republicans desperately want to make inroads. With Harris County officials also denying the accusations that came out of the so-called audit, this including the Harris County attorney, who noted that while there were some problems with the 14 machines, the issues were properly recorded and witnessed by election judges from both parties, so the tallies were always accounted for. He also told the Washington Post that he and other top officials have responded by requesting that the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division send federal election monitors to polling and counting locations in the county. And the outlet noting there the result could be a partisan showdown in which two different sets of monitors face off on election day in this giant metro region. And that's not including the thousands of partisan poll watchers who were expected. Brazil's outgoing President Jair Bolsonaro is taking his sweet-ass time to admit that he lost to President-elect Lula da Silva. And as many feared, his silence is being taken by many of his supporters as a sign to fight. So for 2 days now, truckers and other supporters have blocked off over 200 roads and highways across more than a dozen states to protest Sunday's results, which isn't the most surprising thing, as Bolsonaro has long enjoyed the support of trucking groups, and this form of protest is nothing new for them. But those roadblocks have already had some significant effects, like near Sao Paulo, with a ton of flights having to be canceled due to the protests. On top of that, a major port was blocked and grocery stores are already reporting shortages. The Supreme Court also is not a fan of the protest, with one justice ordering federal officers to clear the blockades and threatened fines of $19,000 per hour per vehicle. However, the head of the Federal Highway Police is a Bolsonaro ally, so there are fears he may drag his feet in actually implementing this order. But as far as if things are really set to go off or if things are going to calm down, we should know relatively soon. Because actually, as I was recording this, Bolsonaro came out and spoke to the nation. Notably, he never conceded defeat in the election, but at the same time, his administration agreed to a peaceful transfer of power. So it looks like things are going forward, whether Bolsonaro wants to or not. And it's being reported that he may have come to this decision to not concede, but concede after speaking with his ministers and heads of the military this morning. It's also not too surprising that Bolsonaro took this route, as it seemed pretty clear that he was becoming increasingly isolated. Right? Even his son, who's a senator, seemingly accepted the results when he tweeted out his thanks to all their supporters and promised not to give up on Brazil. And as far as Lula, he has yet to make any comment about the protest and is focusing on setting up his transition team. But that's the show. Thanks for watching. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow. You beautiful bastards, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. Buckle up, hit that like button, and let's just jump into today's news. Meet Willard Miller and Jeremy Goodale. They're two Iowa teenagers, and the reason they're dressed up like dollar store Hannibal Lecters is that they've been charged with murdering their high school Spanish teacher, Nohema Graber. And this all reportedly happening in the small town of Fairfield. 1 year ago to the day tomorrow, Graber's body was found in a Fairfield park, hidden under a tarp, wheelbarrow, and railroad ties, with the teacher reportedly having been beaten to death with a baseball bat. And the big news today is that prosecutors this week say they know the motive for why these two allegedly did this, and they say it was because of a bad grade. Now, Miller's lawyer, according to the AP, is trying to invalidate 4 search warrants and suppress evidence from Miller's home, comments that he made to the police, and information taken from his cell phone and the social media platform Snapchat. But this is in court. I'm not the judge, you're not the jury, so let's talk about what we think we know. Investigators say that they found that Miller had actually met with his high school Spanish teacher at the high school on the afternoon of the 2nd. This to discuss the bad grade that he had in her class. Authorities saying the Graber later drove her van to a park where she was known to take daily walks after school, with witnesses claiming they later saw her van leaving the park less than an hour later with 2 males in the front seat. That van then gets abandoned, and investigators saying that Goodale then makes a phone call with a witness he called later picking up those two as they walked to town on that same road. One of the likely reasons that Miller's lawyer doesn't want the police interview included is because in that interview, Miller talks about being so frustrated with the way Graver taught Spanish and how his grade was bad in her class, how it was lowering his GPA. Also, regarding the murder, he initially said, "I had no involvement," but then, quote, he later stated he had knowledge of everything but did not participate. Or reportedly saying, no, he didn't kill this teacher. It was a, quote, roving group of masked kids, who also, he claimed, forced him to then get involved by providing a wheelbarrow and driving the van. As far as why Miller's lawyer doesn't want the Snapchat evidence included, well, I mean, as the AP reported, the documents say a witness provided photos of a Snapchat conversation that identify Goodale's admissions that he acted in concert with another person to bring about Graver's death. But as far as what happens from here, we won't know everything until sometime next year, with Goodale's trial set for December and Miller's trial scheduled for March. Though, a key thing with the trials is that this murder happened when both were 16 years old. They are now 17, but they are still going to be tried as adults. And if they're convicted for first-degree murder in Iowa, they could face life in prison. Though, key thing, as the AP notes, Iowa Supreme Court rulings require juveniles convicted of even the most serious crimes to be given a chance for parole. But that said, if everything is as it is, and it is true that they killed their teacher with a fucking baseball bat, hopefully chance for parole isn't actually a chance for parole. And then, when should your own words not be allowed to be used against you in the court of law? That is the central question and debate at the core of this story. Because right now, we are seeing rap lyrics being used in court against artists. Where you have rappers like Young Thug and members of the Young Stoner Life label currently facing dozens of charges, including ones that accuse the label of being a criminal gang. And there, prosecutors are using their lyrics as confessions of criminal intent. Lyrics like, "I get all type of cash, I'm a general." And this, not a random outlier. Experts have found over 500 cases where rap was used as legal evidence, and that is likely an undercount. But also, here's a key thing. Those same experts found only 4 instances since the 1950s where non-rap lyrics were used as evidence. And 3 of the 4 cases were tossed out, while the other was overturned after conviction, which is why you have a lot of critics saying that rap is being unfairly targeted. That rather than looking at rap as free artistic expression like other forms of music, police and prosecutors are very eager to interpret it literally, saying that they ignore the storytelling, figurative language, and hyperbole that's often used in rap. And among those critics, you actually had California Governor Gavin Newsom, who signed a bill limiting the use of rap lyrics as evidence last month. Also, New York, and even at the federal level, legislators are weighing similar bills. And in addition to that, yesterday we saw a massive stand from dozens of artists and major music companies, with the likes of Megan Thee Stallion, Drake, Jack Harlow, Future, Coldplay, and more signing an open letter. A letter reading, more than any other art form, rap lyrics are essentially being used as confessions in an attempt to criminalize black creativity and artistry, saying what's happening is an obvious disregard for free speech and calling it a racially targeted practice, with it then calling on prosecutors to voluntarily end this practice and on politicians at state and federal levels to finally enact legislation that would limit the use of rap lyrics in court. With that said, I do want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think it should be allowed to be used? No, it shouldn't. By all of a sudden making this move that the artists want, are you accidentally creating a loophole? But also, if legislation gets put in place, are we really going to see like a rise of people admitting to crimes in rap? Are OJ and Harvey Weinstein going to drop an album together? And then I want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's show, Squarespace. You know, I've been partnering with Squarespace for years now, and I have to say that if you're getting your business off the ground, or creating a place to share your homemade goods, new favorite hobby, your current obsession, or even having a personal blog to get all those thoughts out of your head no matter what you're doing, Squarespace is there to help. And it's all so easy. There's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. Plus, creating a beautiful website with Squarespace's all-in-one platform has never been so simple. It's extremely intuitive and easy to use. And with their mobile-optimized websites, your content automatically adjusts so it looks great on any device. Plus, with Squarespace, you get access to all their marketing tools and analytics and their award-winning customer care team via email or live chat 24/7. So if you want to check it out, see why so many others love it, see if it's perfect for you, go ahead and start your free trial today over at squarespace.com/Phil. And when you realize you love it, make sure you enter an offer code Phil to get 10% off your first purchase. And then Benjamin Netanyahu is back. He's like the political version of Jason Voorhees, just when you thought he was done. Right, so Israel just had its 5th election since 2019. And I've been covering this ridiculousness since it started, so that the TLDR is that the government there keeps falling apart as minority parties leave the coalition. And the key thing is that as all of this is happening, Netanyahu has actually been fighting corruption charges tied to gifts between him and telecom moguls. But the fact that there was this most recent election, it wasn't shocking, especially when you consider the election prior. Because at that time, the weirdest coalition of parties joined together. It was essentially the Fuck You Bibi coalition of groups that would literally never worked together otherwise, and they tried, and then, no, it fell apart. But then you fast forward to about 80% of the votes now counted as of this morning, and it looks like Netanyahu's party is going to take the top spot. But of course, that alone wouldn't be enough to just give him the job. So, in order to form a government, his bloc is going to need the help of the rising far-right coalition run by Itamar Ben-Gvir to win enough seats. And currently, that far-right coalition is likely to end up as the third biggest bloc in the legislature, which, I mean, that alone is a huge deal, because Ben-Gvir's party barely got into the legislature last time, and this time they're going to be one of the most powerful blocs. This is a coalition that wants things like having an exclusively Jewish state and removing what autonomy the Palestinians still have. He also reportedly wants to make the type of corruption that Netanyahu is accused of legal, grant legal immunity to Israeli soldiers who shoot Palestinians, and support rival lawmakers that he thinks are terrorists. Now, that said, when it comes to Netanyahu's opposition, his biggest rival is current Prime Minister Yair Lapid. His left-center party is the second biggest group in the government. However, just like Netanyahu, Lapid is relying on allies to form a government. And for Netanyahu's opponents, this is where things kind of fall apart. For many of the right-wing voters that were like, Netanyahu's too much, we gotta leave him last time, are now returning, and a lot of the minority parties are just not doing well at the polls. In fact, some are teetering on the threshold to get seats at all in the legislature. And if any of them end up failing, Lapid's coalition has absolutely no hope of pulling off a miracle and winning. But also, with this dramatic shift happening in the polls and voting, one of the biggest questions outside of Israel is, how did Lapid's coalition lose so much support? Well, there are a lot of factors, but some of the biggest include Lapid allegedly had his canvassers target voters from allied parties rather than undecided voters, a practice that reportedly didn't stop until a week before the election. There were also accusations and frustrations that Lapid didn't give enough support to the Arab Party, which was a key ally in the bloc and required to form a government. And then, possibly the thing with one of the biggest impacts came from Lapid's seeming decision to abandon surplus agreements. Right? Those are deals that allow parties who pass a certain threshold to share votes with others, allowing smaller parties to get enough votes to get a seat in the legislature. Or, as one unhappy lawmaker put it, he behaved like a cannibalistic pig who tried to eliminate other parties in order to be the biggest party, and this is the result. Now, this is still a developing situation. It's updating as I'm recording. So I do want to note, there is a small chance that Lapid's coalition could still pull through if every single member of the coalition does way better in the last few percentages of the vote. But seemingly every hour we move forward, it seems less and less likely that's going to happen, and that Netanyahu will instead end up with 65 of the 120 seats. And then we get to see how long this government will work together. Because Itamar Ben-Gvir has been described as a dangerous wild card by many. But there are even indications that the Biden administration won't work with him because of how extreme he is, and that may cause tension. Reportedly, he's pushing for minister positions that would help further his policies, and it's entirely possible that Netanyahu, who is secular, will fear driving away what secular votes he has left due to being forced to court allies like Ben-Gvir. Or, you know, maybe he just gives in and fully embraces Ben-Gvir's vision of Israel. But yeah, that is where we currently are, and of course, I'll pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts? Especially if you're in Israel, or you have family there or around there, because, well, everyone may not realize it. This is huge, massive news. And then there could be a triple-demic this winter. Just get me off this fucking rock. I'm tired. I'm emotionally exhausted. I hate that new words have to keep getting made to describe how fuck shit is. So yeah, right now you have public health experts warning a triple-demic could happen. This because in addition to the expected surges of the flu,
I'm swinging because I'm tired.
Another virus into the mix.
Compromising my
Respiratory
technique.
syncytial virus, or
I'm tired.
RSV. Now, if you don't know, this is not new. This is actually a common seasonal respiratory infection. Well, it usually presents like a cold with very mild symptoms in healthy adults. It can cause lung inflammation or infections like bronchitis and pneumonia in young children, older adults, and the immunocompromised. Now, annually, it's estimated that 58,000 children under the age of 5 are hospitalized with RSV, resulting in between 100 to 500 deaths. Also, among Americans 65 and older, around 177,000 are hospitalized each year, leading to around 14,000 deaths. But the key thing is that this year, the U.S. is experiencing a very, very, very large early surge of the virus, especially among children. In fact, according to the CDC, detected RSV cases have tripled nationwide just in the last 2 months, and case numbers have already reached peak levels seen in 2021, with the preliminary numbers showing that since the beginning of October, nearly 1 in every 500 babies 6 months and younger was hospitalized with RSV. It is believed that the real numbers across the board are much higher because many people who have been infected don't get tested even if they've been hospitalized. Also, as far as what is the reason why so many more children than usual are becoming sick and seriously sick with RSV, well, health experts generally believe right now it's due to the broad rollback of COVID restrictions.
I'm eating my words already.
Children who would have normally otherwise been exposed to RSV and able to build up immunities to it have been insulated because of COVID precautions like masking, social distancing, increased hand washing, and other measures. And so as a result, we've seen what some doctors have described as an unprecedented number of young children being hospitalized in emergency rooms and pediatric intensive care units all over the country. And that massive surge in hospitalizations is putting a serious strain on hospitals right now. They're already dealing with seasonal seasonal spikes in respiratory viruses like colds, flus, and COVID. And as the New York Times notes, it is particularly challenging in regions where pediatric units have shrunk or have even been shuttered in recent years, creating bottlenecks in emergency rooms and shifting the strain to children's hospitals that focused on specialized services like cancer treatment or heart surgery. And we're already seeing the impact in some places. Multiple pediatric hospitals are already at capacity, including Johns Hopkins Children's Center in Baltimore, as well as others in Seattle, Lubbock, Texas, and Orange County, California. Officials in Orange County even going as far as to declare a public health emergency yesterday as the rapid spread of the viral infections, in part driven by RSV, caused pediatric hospitalizations and daily emergency room visits to surge to record levels. Meanwhile, reportedly Boston Children's Hospital has postponed some elective surgeries that would make room for more patients that have respiratory illnesses. Where I'll leave you with the stories with two kind of final things. The first is that whether from this show or somewhere else, you are now aware of what's happening. Now, those will say that the best way to prevent RSV is through precautions you should already be taking. Things like hand washing, drinking water, disinfecting surfaces, avoiding touching your face, which now that I've mentioned you want to do 12,000 times in a minute. Other experts have also said that you should be getting your flu shot and the updated COVID boosters. But also, big news regarding RSV is that yesterday Pfizer announced that it's made an RSV vaccine that is 81.8% effective at protecting newborns from severe illness in the first 3 months of life, and then 69.4% effective for 6 months. But that's not going to be too helpful for you right now, most likely, because while the company says it plans to file for vaccine approval with the FDA, it takes on average 8 to 10 months for the agency to issue a decision on a new vaccine, which is great news for future you, but for you right now might be like throwing an oxygen tank at someone who drowned a year ago. And that is where that story in today's show ends. As always, thank you so much for watching. For more news you need to know, click here or here. But as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow. Beautiful bastards, welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. Buckle up, make sure you hit that like button and let me know you like these big shows, and let's just jump into it. Logan Paul fighting Andrew Tate. It's a weird topic. It's been a rumored thing, heavily talked about. It's something that Logan has kind of flip-flopped on. At one point, Logan saying,
when I'm shopping the idea around to my advisors, they're concerned that he won't be as poppin' as he is right now, or as relevant in, December or January.
Then on an August 30th episode of his podcast, he said,
I don't feel like platforming this guy. I don't feel like giving him the blessing of being my dance partner in the ring. Especially after the social media platforms have made it very clear how they feel about this guy, right?
At that time, also speaking about other creators, including one of his partners, KSI.
You want to re-platform this guy? Anyone. You want to have him on your shows. You want to give him another opportunity to speak and spread his agenda.
But now it appears Logan Paul has flip-flopped, with places like Exerto noting on an October 31st episode of Sean O'Malley's podcast, Logan Paul said,
why don't we do something that both of us have never done? Clean record, 0-0. Let us step into the octagon, brother. An MMA fight, me versus Tate, in the UFC.
With the outlet then noting that a Twitter account that is believed to be run by Andrew Tate voiced his thoughts on the subject, criticizing Logan, praising his brother Jake Paul, but saying if the terms are fair to both parties, I will fight Logan in the cage and destroy him. I've already contacted and confirmed this with a mutual contact. It's time for Logan to pay the price. I will not allow him to earn more money than me for his destruction, as a clown like him with a mediocre online income would happily sacrifice his pride for money. I promised I would fight him for free, and I meant it. With Logan Paul responding, this is fantastic. I honestly didn't think you'd take my offer. Literally just got off the phone with our mutual contact, and I'm down for your drug test and any other fair terms you want. This is going to happen. But ultimately, that is where we are, and I have so many questions. One, does this actually happen? Two, what are your thoughts if it does happen? What are your thoughts regarding Logan Paul changing his tune? And I especially want to know your answer to that if you're someone that hates Andrew Tate, or you love him, or you were for or against the deplatforming. Also, will they make money from this? If so, how much? Like, is it true they'll do it for free? I don't know. Like, so many things these days, it is a weird mess, but that's why I'd love to know your thoughts on it. And then psilocybin keeps looking better and better as a treatment for depression, with researchers from the UK having just published their new findings and saying that when used alongside psychotherapy, psilocybin drastically improved patients' depression symptoms. As far as the specifics, they gave participants 25 milligrams of synthetic psilocybin, putting them into a dreamlike state for 6 to 8 hours, right? They were just on a mild trip, and then while in a calm room, they got their psychotherapy. And in the end, 1 in 3 were no longer considered depressed after just 3 weeks, and 1 in 5 saw significant improvement at 12 weeks. So Dr. James Rucker, who authored the study, saying that this works because the drug, quote, has a direct action on the brain, putting it into a more flexible state and providing a window of opportunity for therapy. Or I guess to put it in layman terms, it opens your bitch ass up. And what's especially great about this is that it often works on depression that has otherwise been resistant.
Wait until I get sub 120 beats and I'll start the next set. 4 sets to go.
Be all on the subject, right? There are safety concerns beyond just having a bad trip. Things like long-term headaches, nausea, extreme fatigue, and suicidal thoughts. But those side effects haven't deterred the researchers, and if anything, they help reinforce the call for longer and larger studies to be done. Because everything in life, especially when you're talking about treatments or medications, there is a give and take. And actually, on that note, we should expect more information soon. This is because the largest ever trial of the drug is set to start in late December. With that, reportedly focused on how large the doses need to be to keep depression from coming back. And a huge key thing here is that this is the first time any psilocybin trial has reached phase 3, which is the last step before being sent to the FDA for approval. Also, if you are someone that suffers from depression, and specifically treatment-resistant depression, while I am not calling for you to do anything, I would recommend you check out the studies around psilocybin as well.
Thanks for answering the call. Much appreciated. Oh, there you are. I see on the WhatsApp messages too. Cheers, cheers. How are you going, Skitzer? Thank you. As you can hear, I listen to stuff in the background, but don't let that deter you. I'm reading the post and whatnot. Or the chat.
Places where you can legally do it under medical supervision. There's also like therapy involved in some of them. But I also want to stop
keep it with my chat.
Anything because
with my streams, do you do any exercise or workout or hobby or any physical activity or anything like that? Any advice, anything you need, whether it be training on ergonomics, on the ball. I can interpret that. I haven't heard that one before, but I can interpret that in multiple different ways. I'm just going to assume that you're having breakfast. But yeah, good morning. Thanks for the follow.
I feel like that's such a fucking personal choice. I don't know. I saw this ad on TikTok, I want to say several months ago, that put a bad taste in my mouth. It was actually advertising ketamine, and its slogan, I shit you not, was go from a saddie to a baddie. And I was like, how is that fucking responsible advertising in any way? But anyway, the war on the sads continue. And then Bo Burnham is absolutely right. And that's not a new take from me. I've been a fan of Bo Burnham since before he got weirded out by Katy Perry at YouTube Live. But once again, in the past 24 hours, more and more people have been like, yeah, no, what Bo said is right. And that's because there's this old clip that's as relevant as ever of Bo Burnham talking about social media and these companies.
It has to get more of you. That could be the ceiling for a place like this. YouTube, the ceiling could be 3 hours of engagement. No matter how nice it's trying to be, it is all that they're trying to get more engagement from you. We used to colonize land. That was the thing you could expand into, and that's where money was to be made. We colonized the entire earth. There was no other place for the businesses and capitalism to expand into, and then they realized human attention. That they are now trying to colonize every minute of your life. That is what these people are trying to do. Every single free moment you have is a moment you could be looking at your phone.
You know, it's true. I mean, for over a decade, people have called this the attention economy. Right? More and more people realizing they're the product, these companies, that they can have a message of some sort, but at the end of the day, it's to help investors or themselves. And it reminds me of that quote of what starts out as a mass movement ends up a racket, a cult, or a corporation. It's incredibly rare, if not impossible, to have a completely pure thing at a mass scale. You know, when it comes to social media, we do view it as this tool, but also I think it's important.
Shoulders, back, tight. Massages temporary. Do I need a stronger back? More stretches? What's your advice? All right. Without knowing barely anything about you. So safe practices would be if it's your back and your shoulders. What work do you do, by the way? Just to give me a bit of more of an idea. What's your job? What do you predominantly do? And do you do any form of exercises already? But some general posture advice would be, most people when they're standing, I'd say about 90%, you have the usual, so from the head down, you got the forward head posture, rounded shoulders, arched back, and then because they don't have a tight enough core, shortened lower back as well. You got everything happening from the waist and below. But anyway, to fix things one at a time, from the top to the bottom, you want to bring your neck back. So I'm not saying bring your neck back, but bring your chin to the back of your neck. You see how, I'm just making sure you can see it. It's called a chin tuck. Look it up on YouTube, but you bring your chin to the back of your neck. You see how that flattens out? That's the posture you want. practice that about 10 times every day. You can do it anywhere, at a desk. I normally do it when I'm driving because it's not hard to do any activity and just focus on this. Do about 10 reps. That'll help the neck. Upper body now. So daily coder, daily gamer. So you're at a desk almost 24/7 then. So everything I've told you up till now will help. Next one. Rounded shoulders, arch back. This is exaggerated, of course, but a lot of people are like this anyway. Camera angles, you know. So a stretch that I like to do, well, that I prescribe my patients, is essentially all you do is you have your arms on the side. You can always do this when you're seated, especially since you're at a desk anyway. Side, side, and essentially breathe in. And on every exhale, turn your arms outwards, not back, but turn them outwards, so you're sort of rotating on that axis. What that does is it pulls, it arches your back, upper back and straightens it out. Stretches out the front, because what happens there is a lot of people have tight pecs. You know when people do a lot of deadlifts and they think they're getting a bigger chest? What's happening is the front chest starts to close, starts to round forward. When you start to round forward, you start to arch your back. So the stretches for first, bringing that back and arching it. That'll help fix the upper back as a stretch. As a workout, you want to work your rhomboids. So essentially, where my singlet is, the singlet area of that upper back part, you want to do things like face pulls. So pretend I had an elastic band in front of me. I was holding it. I'm just pulling it towards my chest. That'll work the upper back, and that'll help, as you can see already, reinforce those muscles to hold there, which is for the upper back. Now for the lower back, what you want to do there now is you want to work your core. A little mistake that most people do when they work their core is they start to engage their hip flexors, which sort of serve as the same action as your core, sort of, but a different joint. So if you want a simple exercise to do leg raises. Simple. Keep the bottom of the back flat on the ground. If you can fit your fingers underneath your back, it means it's too arched. What you want to do is, so most people are like this, like this. And I can bring my fingers under, flatten it out, and I can't go under. Once that's flat, it means the lower back isn't engaged. Now, once that's flat, bring this up about 45 degrees. Any higher, I'll start working these hip flexors, which is what you don't want. You want to adjust about here and engage the core. What does that do? Like I said, lower back, everyone's arched like this. Let me just get that angle, there we go. Arch like that. You want to decrease that arch by doing this. And how's that done? Again, that core exercise. What does that core exercise do? It arches your hip up, shortening this, flattening this. Oh man, I can't get that angle. But anyway, you sort of get what I'm saying, hopefully. Any questions, please ask. Those are some simple things I can tell you. The hard part for you is, it's your job and it's your hobby. So, posture is very, very valuable. It doesn't take away the issue. It's not a cure, but at least holds you together that bit longer before anything bad can happen or anything for it to occur. So, oh man, my heart rate's still going. But anyway, so ergonomic wise, you can sort of see where I'm getting at. So once you are in the right position, flatten back, flatten top, shoulders back, forward. So ergonomic wise, you want your monitor to be about eye level. If you have dual monitors, be in the center. If you have a main one, a problem is sometimes you always turn your head. Short periods of time is okay, but the fact that you're doing it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week minimum, guessing, you're gonna get a problem after a period of time. So make sure your screens are somewhere, or your predominant screen is in front of you at least. Good. Rows will help as well. Rows will help as well. That's right. It's either face pulls or external rotators. Essentially, when you're doing this, concentrate on those rhomboids. Very good. And you don't have to exaggerate it. You just got to engage it. Get the shoulder blades at the back to sort of come together and sort of just touch each other. They call it kissing the shoulder blades. Once they touch, that's it, you're good. Don't overdevelop them, because that can happen. All you want to do is to start engaging them. Once you start turning them on, just because you have those muscles doesn't mean you're using them. A big problem is our bigger muscles take over, not allowing our little ones to get the work in that they need. Yeah. Oh, Henry, was that you that just followed that? I must have missed it. I'm not too sure. I'm not sure what I'm following. But cheers for jumping in. Shoulder clicks, very normal. Mine too, plenty others. What I tell people is everyone has clicks. I'm not sure if you can hear this. That's my wrist. I could do that forever if I want to. All that is a structure in my body that's flicking over something else. But if it's causing you pain or restrictions, get it looked at. Find someone who can assess it. But everyone's got clicks here and there in their body. Perfectly normal. Shoulder blades emergence. How dare you? I've touched your shoulder blades before, I'm sure. Jokes. How are you anyway, Henry? Thanks for jumping in. Any advice you want? I'm gonna casually work out while, actually do what I'm meant to be doing. Well, advice is part of it, but yeah.
Important to understand that we're still in the middle of an experiment. What happens when everyone can see?
I guess shoulder click wise, mobilizations. It's all about movement. Keep things mobile. Every day if you can, with your chin tucks. Just move them. Rotate. You'll hear a click, like I said, nothing wrong with that. But just get your body used to that range of motion. If you don't use it, you lose it. Much love, Henry. Much love. We've got to catch up sometime. We'll get some food, play some mahjong, do some gambling. Oh, talk about gambling. Good work last time. On a hot run. Oh man, what am I up to?
And say all things at any given time. Which also, in other news regarding the experiment, the newest chapter of Elon Musk's Twitter takeover, we're already seeing it play out. We're seeing things like big headlines involving Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Right, unsurprisingly, AOC has been critical of Musk and his Twitter ideas, specifically taking a jab at his $8 verification subscription and saying, "Laughing my ass off at a billionaire earnestly trying to sell people on the idea that free speech is actually an $8 a month subscription plan." To which Elon replied, "Your feedback is appreciated, now pay $8. With Elon then trying to call out AOC for selling $58 sweatshirts, though she shot back saying, "Proud of this and always will be. My workers are union, make a living."
I'm reading Andrew's comment about the hot tub.
Subjected to racist treatment
one day,
in workplaces. Items
who knows?
USA, Team AOC
I've got the idea when it comes to subscription. Maybe I should start like cutting little pieces of clothing out of my singlet sort of thing.
Against her, people in the corner. Not too long after this whole thing, AOC said there are mentions and
I
notifications.
asked Helen,
conveniently
should I
and she was informed
sell out my body?
Under a certain billionaire's skin. With this issue,
worked hard for it. Why not let it work hard for me?
Elon Musk, while I have your attention,
And then,
people pay $8
she didn't
just
say
for
no.
the app to get bricked when they say something you don't like. This is what my app looked like. What's good doesn't seem very free speechy to me. Right, so we'll see what happens there. That's the bulk of the story. But where I actually want to end this one is that the more that I've thought about it, the more that I think Elon Musk's $8 subscription thing, it might actually work. But not because it's necessarily a good idea. Like, most of the stuff that he's talking about is just Twitter blue. Right, that whole checkmark thing being the reason why you won't get as much spam or anything anymore. That's literally him monetizing a platform not being able to moderate itself. Like, he's literally trying to take the worst thing about it and being like, you want it to not suck as much? Give me $8 a month. Which, hey, like I've said, it is his platform to build or burn to the ground. But I think there are several possible groups that actually buy this. One, you're gonna have people who already pay for YouTube Blue that just keep on doing it, which actually I am a part of this group. I subscribed to YouTube Blue when it first came out. I wanted to test, see what it's about. And honestly, I feel like the only reason I haven't canceled the subscription is I really like the undo button. While it could easily be seen as overpriced, I also feel like it saved me for myself a few times. Two, you're gonna have this batch of people that are already verified that don't want to lose it, or people who have always wanted to be verified and now they're able to get it. Three, people that feel like the default experience is horrible and they are willing to pay for a better experience. And four, while I in no way do I want to say this is universal, it does feel like there's an element to this that is like monetizing the culture war. Like, it's not purely left-wing and right-wing, but it feels very close to that. With some saying that Elon Musk was using like the fuck coastal elites sort of a political playbook. But hey, time will tell. Will this be the rocket ship for Twitter, or is it gonna explode on takeoff? Either way, it's gonna be interesting to watch because the way Elon's been doing things, it feels like how a CEO of like an app that's in beta goes about things. Big swings are happening fast and publicly. And then, quick thing, I want to announce this Sunday we're gonna be testing a new thing here on the channel. You know, we've been uploading those weekly recaps with Zed. I love that you guys have been loving it. But also this Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, we're gonna be testing turning that into like a community show. So for those who have been tuning in just for that, you're still getting your weekly recap, and we're gonna be having a whole show where we talk about the news, me and you, as well as taking a look at and continuing the conversation we've been having around news this week and those comments, as well as the polls, and it should be fun. But yeah, I want to make sure I let you know because I'm really bad at that, and I often just like throw videos up. Thank you, or you're welcome, I'm not sure. And then, if you're looking for great value regarding your streaming needs, then the fantastic sponsor of today's show, SmartBundle.com, may be just what you've been looking for. SmartBundle.com includes access to 7 of the most mentally stimulating streaming services like Curiosity Stream and One Day University, documentary and educational streaming platforms with thousands of TV shows, films, and courses across science, nature, technology, and more. Or go in deep on the topic with Nebula, creator-owned and operated streamer with exclusive content from fantastic YouTubers like Legal and Lindsay Ellis. And you gotta check out Tastemade and Som TV for the best food, wine, and travel video services. Or Topic for crime thrillers from all over the world. And if you have kids, it even has DaVinci Kids so you can make them smarter while you take a nap or something. And of course, the best part is if you go to smartbundle.com/PhillyD and you use my code PhillyD, you get 40% off your subscription price, which makes it only $42 for an entire year for 7 services. I genuinely don't think there's a better streaming deal out there.
I'm
so
glad it's helping.
Or do some early holiday shopping because my code also works for gift cards as well. And then Ukraine has faced its most intense.
I just realized I cut you short. So part of that stretch. Breathe in, breathe out, rotate. Don't stop there. So I don't know why I somehow missed this part. So breathe in. Everyone that sits at a desk, do this. Breathe in, out, rotate. Keep that stretch. Breathe in again. Out. Every breath out, rotate again. Remember, rotate. Not pull, rotate. Just turning the arms. So pretend your palms, turning them outwards. You want to get to at least three breaths. 5's not too bad, but 3 to 5. Do that every day. Yeah, good to hear.
Bombing campaign since the start of the war in the last month, with Russia targeting civilian infrastructure across the entire country, not just the Donbass, leaving 80% of Kyiv's residents without running water as of Halloween after missiles hit several hydroelectric dams and plants, according to the mayor. President Zelensky also saying last week that about 4 million people were subjected to electricity rationing. But the key thing is, you know, I realize both as someone that consumes the news like you do and someone that has my show that it's really hard to understand what's happening on the ground in Ukraine just from the media.
No, don't unrotate. Just keep adding on. So, pretend every time I breathe in, I breathe out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So never unrotate. Just keep adding on to the last one. As far as you can get to. It's like a stretch. So, you know, everyone's different. See how far you get to. You're testing those uncomfortable ranges. Where uncomfortability is where we can adapt. So that's why I say 3 to 5, you know, just depends how hard you really want to push yourself. But okay, if it comes to a pain scale then, personal pain scale, I always say, if it feels like a 5 out of 10, you're sweet. It's always normal to feel a bit of pain. Anything more than that, pull it back.
Media reports and statistics, which is why for today's show we decided to reach out to Vitaly Demega, the founder of the Ukrainian Witness Project. Their goal is to document life in Ukraine and capture the reality of war for a global audience. So a key thing I want to mention is that this interview took place last week, just before this latest round of missile strikes, so I just want you to keep that in mind. And if anything, it kind of highlights how drastically things can change. But as far as Vitaly, he arrived in Kyiv on February 22nd, just 2 days before Russia launched a full-scale invasion of the country, which he said didn't surprise him, saying he actually got word from a Ukrainian official that war was imminent, so he came to do his part and help his mother exit the country. And understand, this was at a time where most people were running in the opposite direction, with as many as half the city's residents fleeing within a couple of weeks. With Vitaly explaining by doing that, it resulted in just this dense community of only those most committed to the country's defense.
It was pretty strange time, but the feeling was fantastic. I mean, like, you went to the street, and every person you've seen, it was like you really feel like that you love this.
2 more sets, and I'm done for today. Thanks for the questions.
Like,
thanks for the support. It's much appreciated.
Where people who decided that this is my city, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I will go and fight if like it's needed.
If you guys are wondering, I'm just listening to news in the background.
The feeling was fantastic. I mean, like, it was the best atmosphere in the city, like, in all my life.
But also understand, it's not like it was all fun. You had constant shelling and explosions, food and fuel shortages, doctors living in hospitals. And for Vitaly, the violence touched him personally.
A lot of my friends went to fight armed forces. Some of them unfortunately died.
But at least in Kyiv, he says that the worst of the war passed earlier in the spring and things weren't as bad now. In fact, one of the most surprising things that he told me was just how little daily existence in the capital had changed.
You see, there are like many cars driving around, like
Let's
people
say
crossing
sub
the
140
street,
beats and I'll start the next
like
set.
restaurants working. I don't see, like, we cannot see from this perspective any restaurant, but believe me, most of them are working. So basically, life looks pretty the same actually. If we're talking about, for example, food, like the food is, I mean, like you can buy, like it's not a problem, you can buy any food, you can go to restaurant. The same is with like medical services. It's not a problem if you have like any disease in Kiev to have an operation, surgery, whatever. But right now it looks
Wearing
in
this,
many
ooh,
ways,
cleavage.
It feels the same, but still there are.
What's a better way of me to show this?
There are more
It's like a strap.
military guys in the
Wraps at the
street.
front.
Though, of course, any sense of normalcy is often interrupted by the wail of air raid sirens, especially when there's heavy shelling
Cheers,
nearby,
Skitzer.
prompting some
You're too
people to hide
kind.
in bomb shelters, basements,
Hopefully
and
Red
petrol
Arcane
stations.
9
So,
appreciates
because
and thanks
even
you.
in those moments,
But yes,
most
it is
people
wireless.
don't take it
Sorry.
that seriously.
Like in 90% of the cases,
I downloaded an app on my phone called Pulsoid, and it's attached to this heart rate monitor that I have. Better than a watch. I don't like. I have a love-hate relationship because I love watches, but I don't have enough opportunities to wear them because with my work, you know, gotta use my hands. Even though there are therapists that wear watches, personally, I just don't like the feeling. I don't know. And to only have a watch just to work out, it feels a bit of a waste. So I just bought this heart rate monitor, a bit cheaper, purely exactly what I need it for. I think it's more accurate, but no, I lie. All of them are accurate in their own way. They're all at least consistent when they take the measurements. Whether they're accurate or not, that's a different question. Yeah, thanks. Thanks again, Schizo, as well.
that people just don't do anything, because like the chance that you will be hit by some missile or drone in Kiev is not much bigger than you would die in car accident. So it's not like,
He's too kind.
even
I think,
when
ah,
they
Sleepy,
were,
you
like,
do that
2
now.
weeks ago, like massively shelling Kiev with drones.
Alright, after
and
this set,
missiles, I mean,
we'll
like,
do the 10 burpees.
there were like maybe, I don't remember the number, but it was like something like 50.
And cheers,
people
Schizo. I think you're the
killed.
first donated sub I
mean,
had.
like,
It's much
in-
appreciated. Honestly, thank you.
Some suburbs of Chicago.
I
I
should tell you to take it back. I feel bad now. I'm happy to just give the advice. You don't have to waste your money, man. But thank you. It is appreciated.
Of much better developed countries than Ukraine in one day.
Which, I just gotta say, two things. One, as an American, just hearing somebody who's actively trying not to be killed by Russian artillery comparing their situation to Chicago and being like, it could be worse, very interesting. But also, secondly, it kind of made me realize, like, how much we acclimate and normalize what we're going through. Right? It's by no means a one-to-one comparison, but it's kind of interesting to see how, like, Americans have just accepted that thousands of COVID deaths every week is normal, and that is not some weird rarity. You have people that are literally under fire from Russia, like the regular missile strikes are a part of their day, and they're like, still, I gotta work though. Right? Even extremes become just part of life. But also, I want to be careful while mentioning that and really note, I'm not trying to downplay the effect of the war or compare the two as even remotely equal. With Vitaly explaining that many people are still just, they're mentally exhausted. They're trying to feed and protect their families in an absolutely horrible situation. And that's without mentioning the psychological toll that's going to be left on the population long after the fighting stops.
So, if you're talking about stress, I feel that whole the nation will have something like PTSD after the war, because
Cheers.
it's
Cheers.
actually pretty, traumatic.
Yeah,
experience.
true.
And the bombardment of Kyiv has ramped up.
You know, that was a bit-
considerably in
that was a bit
recent
more
months.
mutual.
Ukraine blew up an important bridge connecting Crimea to
Thanks for
mainland
the
Russia.
prime, Henry.
They started
Thank you.
shelling Kiev with this drone and like with
Always glad to know I have the boys' backs.
They didn't
Wait.
keep a lot of infrastructure.
Always glad to know my.
here.
Wait.
So
Oh, I fucked that
it
up.
was just a few places in the center of
Always
the
good to
city
know
where
my
they
boys have my
really
back.
destroyed a building or hit the road or something else.
Alright, Sleepy.
But, like,
Thank
it
you to
didn't
you,
have
long
any
time
huge
lurker.
impact. The only
Always
impact you feel
appreciate.
here is that the problems with electricity. They try to destroy Ukrainian electricity plants, and they hit some of them. So right now we don't have electricity for a few hours in a day.
Yeah, Vitaly said the feeling among most of the people is one of excitement because unlike early on in the war when they feared that a Russian siege of the capital might cut off food supplies, now they find themselves reinvigorated by Ukraine's breakthrough counteroffensives, and he believes that even if Russia used nuclear weapons, people would keep on fighting, which is also why he says any efforts to reopen diplomatic negotiations for some kind of settlement or a ceasefire, they appear futile at this point.
I think that people are very far from even thinking
I hate you,
about
Sleepy.
any kind of compromise.
I hate you so
Right
much.
now, like
I hate you.
we are like winning, we're getting territories back, and everyone has a feeling that it's like we're pretty close to break their, spine. We are okay. We are prepared for the winter. I mean, like we understand that there is a good chance that they will.
Me English no good, Henry.
Like different plants.
Thanks for taking your time out of your day. I'm sure you're all at work, lurking.
To heat the houses. So probably like we will need to, I don't know, to sleep in a sleeping bags for this winter. But that's okay. I mean, like we can survive one winter to,
I should throw it in the second chat.
And go away forever.
Vitaly ended by adding that international aid has been crucial.
Hey,
in
Fish
repelling
26,
Russian
thanks for the
forces,
follow.
but more is
Much
needed,
appreciated.
as well as recommending some specific charities if you personally want to help. Come back.
Sorry, you're hearing me huff and puff. You can blame Sleepy for that. Fish, welcome. Do you train, exercise, any physical hobbies, or any questions you need when it comes to training or anything in general, really? I might just throw this into the Tekken chat as well. See how many boards I can drag over from there. What was I up to? That's right, I was doing lateral raises. Okay.
Back Alive is one he created himself and it funds the armed forces. Or for more humanitarian ones, there's Nova Ukraine, Razum for Ukraine, and United 24. But for now, that's where I'm going to end this. Obviously, we're going to keep our eyes on what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to continue talking about it at a top level, but I also think it is important to actually talk to individuals on the ground. I don't think that it's a one or the other situation. I think you need both to fully understand things. And then, did you know that 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time that they're 35? Maybe you have that friend or that family member that's dealing with hair loss, and well, thanks to the sponsor of today's show, Keeps, you don't have to just sit around and wait for that to happen to you. Whether you're looking to prevent hair loss, stimulate hair growth, or
I'll get there eventually.
And then, it's been over 6 weeks since the killing of Masa Amini, and the unrest has not stopped. Because as the police there kill one protester after another, they're only adding more martyrs to the movement. With one death back in September especially outraging the people there. With that being Hadish Najafi, a 23-year-old TikToker. She filmed herself on her way to a protest saying, "I hope in a few years, when I look back, I will be happy that everything has changed for the better." But then, less than an hour later, police reportedly shot and killed her, and her family said that the authorities actually threatened them to say that her cause of death was natural. Or basically the same thing that happened to Amini, so she's become a symbol in the demonstrations. With her and sister also inviting people to a 40-day memorial at Najafi's grave, marking the end of the mourning period, which is culturally significant.
I'll wait till I get sub 140
beats.
beats.
Thousands of people showing up, marching along the highway toward the cemetery while shouting "Death to the dictator." Also, with the government shutting down roads leading there in anticipation for this event, but then
I've been thinking about playing that new Resident Evil download patch and having a heart rate monitor on me. That'll be interesting and fun. Maybe sometime in the near future.
Huge crowds still made it to the cemetery where they were met by police, who, witnesses say, brutalized them, deploying tear gas, firing live ammunition, and even slashing some with a machete. Where you can hear gunfire in the video obtained by the BBC. You also had some protesters fighting back, throwing rocks at the police and breaking car windows. Currently, we don't have any idea of the casualties yet, but nationwide, you have a human rights group saying Wednesday that 277 people, including 40 children, have died since the protest began, which is an absolutely staggering figure given how little time it's been, but it only seems to be adding fuel to the fire, with one chant at the cemetery being each protester killed will be replaced by 1,000 more. And if that does continue to happen, there are concerns that the regime could get more desperate, which then could lead them to taking even more extreme actions to shore up their legitimacy. But also, here's the key thing. All of this is coming at a time where Saudi Arabia has shared what it calls credible intelligence with the United States, warning of an imminent attack against the kingdom by Iran. Or that was on Tuesday. Iran has denied the accusation, though the U.S. threatened to respond if necessary. As far as why they would launch an attack, there are accusations that would be connected to the protests. Or just last month, the commander of the Revolutionary Revolutionary Guard demanded that Saudi Arabia clamp down on its coverage of the protest through satellite media, saying, "This is our last warning because you are interfering in our internal affairs through these media." So is it a bluff? Is it not? Is it meant to distract from what's happening in Iran? What is going to happen with the protests in Iran? A lot of questions, and unfortunately, we have to wait to see what is going to happen next. And then, the man accused of attacking Paul Pelosi and trying to kidnap Nancy Pelosi reportedly was in the U.S. illegally, with Homeland Security officials confirming that the man is a Canadian national and that ICE has lodged a detainer on him. With that being a notice that the agency intends to take custody of an individual who could be deported and request to be notified before that person is released. Though, that detainer likely won't impact the case against him because deportations are civil proceedings that happen after criminal cases are resolved. Right, so as far as what else we know, federal records indicate the suspect came to the U.S. legally via Mexico in March of 2008. For Canadians who travel to America for business or pleasure are usually able to stay in the country for 6 months without a visa. DHS saying the man was admitted to the country as a temporary visitor traveling for pleasure. Though, notably here, before the confirmation from DHS, there was also mixed reporting on how long this guy had been in the States. You had a U.S. official telling the Associated Press that he had legally entered in 2000 but stayed way after his visa expired. With the New York Times reporting that he was registered to vote in San Francisco County from 2002 to 2009 and even voted once in 2002. Now, all of that could technically mean that he had various different
much
visas
appreciated.
at times, but the
Take
fact of the matter is the
take
man
breaks,
is here
get up,
legally, and that's pretty
stretch.
fucking wild. The same guy
Not
who
a cure,
embraced far-right conspiracies
but
about
every
U.S.
little bit
politicians
helps.
and told investigators he wanted to break the House Speaker's kneecap as a lesson to other Congress members isn't
Prevention
even
better
American.
than
This is the same
treatment.
guy that allegedly told police he was on a suicide mission and had a list of state and federal lawmakers he wanted to target. Which, just as a side thing, I saw someone else commenting on it, but it's very true. It's always wild to me that there are these corners of the internet where you have people like riling each other up to commit violence, like political violence, but then when seemingly one of them does it, everyone's like, it's a false flag. He's not one of us. He's part of the deep state. Meanwhile, this new revelation regarding what happened to the Pelosi's comes amid tons of discussions over the safety and security of lawmakers at a time of increased threats, with a key thing here being a lot of focus on the Capitol Police. This after it was reported earlier this week that Capitol Police security cameras that were trained on Pelosi's house actually captured the attack, but no one was watching them. With the agency saying in a statement yesterday that its command center has access to around 1,800 cameras, but not all are watched constantly. Adding that Pelosi's home is actively monitored around the clock when she's there, but not when she's in Washington. Which is why you've seen many people arguing that there should be more security and surveillance, especially on the second person in line for the presidency, especially given the threat of violence after January 6th and warnings from law enforcement ahead of the midterm. And that was echoed in a scathing letter yesterday sent to Capitol Police by Representative Zoe Lofgren, who is one of the most senior Democrats in Congress and heads the admin.
30 minutes longer than my usual workout. Frank, you're jumping right at the end. Just finishing up. I feel like I can redeem your cheddar request, since the request is mainly for when he's not in here. There you go. Ah. I flash you. Finishing up at work. What time is it over there? I gotta start in about an hour or two. Hopefully you got some rest after yesterday. I heard you had a pretty long day yesterday. Oh, fair enough. He never listens to me. There we go. Yeah, thanks for joining in, Frank. That's it for today. You called me right when I finished. And even though I'm longer stream than usual, I think if I keep giving advice, the stream's just gonna get longer and longer, but it is what it is. I guess that's the reason for the stream. But anyway, till next time, I'm gonna make some lunch, get ready for work. Thanks everyone for following, donating, gifting, subscribing. It was nice today. It's nice to see all the boys jump in. So yeah, thank you. Until next time. Frank, hopefully speak to you soon sometime. So take care of yourself. Until next time. Bye. Oh yeah, and thanks. Sleepy every time you give me bloody burpees. Choose something else besides burpees. Alright, thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, cheddar. Yes, yes. Follow the finger.